The Toronto Raptors have made a sneaky trade, which has a portion of the fan base fairly excited as the Raptors have brought back a member of that 2019 championship winning squad back in the organization. So we'll break down the reality of that trade as well as the newest Toronto Raptor, a guy that was acquired this offseason, really bursting out on the scenes during EuroBasket this summer and proving to Raptors fans, proving to people watching these games that he is ready to take a leap with added responsibility out here for this Toronto Raptors team going into next season. So lots of stuff to break down in this video, but folks, I appreciate all the feedback and all the support you guys have been given over the course of this summer. Pumped for this season coming up. Finally, the Raptors are going to be back in the mix, trying to be competitive, trying to win games. And I'm trying to up this up. Got a new microphone here. Let me know how it sounds in this video. I think it might be a little bit quiet, so we're going to be tweaking it over the next couple of vids. But let's dive into the news because there is so much stuff to dive into in this vid. And the first thing I want to talk about is this man, Mamukelashvili, who is a guy that had me fairly excited when the Toronto Raptors made the move to acquire him this summer. The guy that played for the San Antonio Spurs and averaged 6 points per game, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, but shot 37% from behind the three-point line and is just 26 years old. He's 6'11". The height range ends up changing a ton based off where you see that data, but a guy that's expected to come in and have a legitimate role out there at that backup big man position for this Toronto Raptors team, whether he's playing the 4 or the 5, because the Raptors have a lot of depth on this team, but there's more question marks out there in the front court rather than the back court. So anything we see from Mamu, any of these latest developments have a lot of Raptors fans very intrigued because we look at the actual depth chart of this roster, of this group, and we see, yes, at the guard position, you are loaded with IQ, with RJ Barrett, Gradey Dick, Jacoby Walter, Jamal Shead. All guys are legitimate rotation guys. The forward spots, Scottie BI, one of the better forward tandems out there in the NBA. Ochai Agbaji, elite 3-and-D player. Some people are making the arguments he should be starting. You have Jameson Battle, Jonathan Mobo, CMB. AJ Lawson improved a lot out there in Summer League. The Raptors are loaded at every single position out there in terms of depth. The center spot, there are more question marks because you have a Jakob Poeltl, who of course is going to be, an elite center, top 15 center out there in the NBA. Great. But behind him, you have Shead, who dealt with some injuries the back half of last year, showed some promise out there in Summer League, has shown some development, but still is on a two-way contract. He is a long-term development piece for this Toronto Raptors team. But then you have Mamukelashvili, who, again, I broke down his stats. A guy who was a backup for the Spurs the past couple seasons, was a fan favorite, and a guy that has a tight relationship with RJ Barrett going back to their high school days. So has some relationships in the Raptors organization, can knock down some threes, and especially with Chris Boucher gone, who of course was in now the rotation depending on how competitive the Toronto Raptors were trying to be the past couple of seasons. But basically, Mamukelashvili is going to start off the season with expectations he can be that backup big man. Now, you might see, of course, Shead be in the mix, but I expect him to have another year of development to really get his feet under him out there with a full healthy season, hopefully, and he'll be competing with Jonathan Mobo and maybe even CMB with his defensive prowess to be able to slide up to that backup 5 position for certain matchups. Again, not going to be your night in, night out backup 5. So Mamu has some significant expectations on him, for this year. So why are we bringing him out? Why are we talking about him here now at this point? Well, playing for his home country of Georgia out there in EuroBasket, he had some big performances, specifically against, we'll break this down, but against France, had an upset win for Georgia in this EuroBasket competition and really had a significant impact, putting 14 points, 11 rebounds in that game, 2 assists, 2 steals, and really in these games, watching the highlights of them here now, it's going to happen over the past week or so, this man proved that he can really have an impact out there on the defensive end. EuroBasket's completely different basketball, different rules, different types of competition, but Mamu really came out while, doing everything out there on the offense and knocking down shots, scoring the paint, doing all this stuff that we expect him to be able to do at the NBA level, but also showed some encouraging signs to playing with an elite team defense and, just showing that hustle, intensity, and stuff that Raptors fans are going to be looking for out there from a backup 5, especially if Jakob Poeltl does go down with injury, because then we are very, very thin out there on the front lines, and we want to see that Mamu can actually be a big man defender, can be a guy that you don't have to hide on every single possession. Now, am I expecting him to be, your all-world rim protector or anything like that after a couple good games out there in EuroBasket? Very small sample size, 5 games. I'm going to break down just the playoff ones. No, but the fact that he's confident out there in this elevated role, 26 years old, entering the prime of his career, confident enough to, pull off a major upset like that, that is very, very encouraging, very, very exciting, for a guy that the Raptors are bringing in to have an expanded role from what he's had in previous seasons with the San Antonio Spurs. So big win there for Georgia. And then also on top of it, they played against Finland, who do have Lauri Markkanen, were the favorites going into that matchup. He had a very strong game in that one as well. So, and Alexander Mamukelashvili, it's Sandro, it's different names, different lists. See him second on this list, but put in 22 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, knocking down some shots, elite 3-point shooting there as a guy, 6 of 10 from the field, elite shooting from the field, but 2-5 from the 3-point line. Mamu's a guy that just has a lot of Raptors fans excited about what he's able to provide out there on the basketball court. So, he lost to Finland, is what it is, but he proved his ability to get buckets. He's proved his ability, come out and have an impact in these games. And now the next thing that we want to see from Mamu is really how he'll fit within this role for the Toronto Raptors. Because the depth chart, he is going to be a crucial piece out there in the front court. It's the biggest hole in this team, and he is the guy that the Raptors have brought in, Bobby Webster brought in to essentially fill that position. So let me know what you guys think about Mamu's development, what impact he can have out there on this Toronto Raptors team, and what we can expect from him going into this season. But that's not the only bit of news that we have out here in this video, as the Toronto Raptors have brought back Patrick McCaw. That's right, the man that has 3 NBA championships, 3 chips out there in his first 3 seasons, the last player in NBA history to three-peat. Patrick McCaw is back with the Toronto Raptors organization. As news has come out, the Raptors 905 are acquiring rights to Patrick McCaw and a first-round pick from Delaware for the rights to Kennedy Chandler. McCaw has continued winning at the G League level, basically being a positionless super vet for those teams. Ended up, Blake Murphy went on to say, McCaw has had some interest in the EuroLeague earlier this summer. It's unclear if he intends to do a 5th consecutive season in the G League or cash in elsewhere. His rights for the last 2 years, his rights, the 905 now have 2 first-round picks, though those don't matter a ton in the G League historically. So, Patrick McCaw, he's back with this team. What has he been doing since he's been with the Toronto Raptors? Because, of course, we all got to witness, we followed that team very, very closely. The Toronto Raptors did when they won the NBA championships. You could see in that 2018-2019 season, Patrick McCaw out there on the Toronto Raptors got that chip despite being on also being on those Golden State Warriors teams the 2 years prior. McCaw brought in midseason, became a favorite of Nick Nurse. And, especially the season after the 2019-2020 season, Patrick McCaw got some legitimate games, got some legitimate run. He started a few games, and then the season after, of course, only played 5, and then I believe the Toronto Raptors. So I believe he dealt with an injury, if my memory ends up coming right. So what happened with Patrick McCaw? Well, the thing that happened was, went down to the G League, and then Nick Nurse, who of course went to Philadelphia, he played for the Philadelphia 76ers G League affiliate. And then over those years with the Delaware Blue Jackets, he's a guy that, didn't burst onto the scene. He didn't take any major leaps in terms of development, in terms of, performance, in terms of scoring ability, really anything out there along those lines. His best season was probably 23-24 season, where at 31 games played, 28 minutes per night, averaged 9 points per game, did shoot a very high percentage from the 3-point line, out there at 38%, but that number fell significantly during last year's G League performance, where he only shot 27% from the 3-point line. Of course, being a versatile defender, he can come out, impact the game on the defensive end, slash cut. He does all the little things very, very well, but still haven't seen that major growth from Patrick McCaw. And realistically, I don't expect him to be in the G League this long. If he didn't work out with the Delaware Blue Jackets with Nick Nurse out there as head coach, I think his hope for, making one of those NBA rosters through the G League route is very, very limited. I mean, we don't have anywhere on the roster to really fit him. I think a lot of Raptors fans would be much more interested in an AJ Lawson filling out one of those final roster spots. Even a David Roddy, I think a lot of people want to see in terms of, being a position player out there at that point rather than a Patrick McCaw. But of course, he did win a championship with the Toronto Raptors, so we can't disrespect that. We can't disrespect a man that has 3 chips and stuff, but my expectation is he's going to be in the Raptors 905 or he's going to be out there in Europe and not really sniff the main roster, despite it being cool that a member of the 2019 championship team is back with the organization. So let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. Do you want to see Patty McCaw fight for one of these final roster spots? I mean, would you want to see him in those training camp battles, the preseason battles, even if it's just a PR thing? I don't know. We lost Chris Boucher. We brought back Patrick McCaw. Bobby Webster trying to get some nostalgia going at this point. I don't really know. Let me know what you guys think. I'm signing out. Cheers.